In Windsor, Ontario, hundreds of jobs are on the line as a deal to build an electric battery plant threatens to fall through. Construction on the Stellantis factory paused nearly 2 weeks ago while negotiations continue between the company and the federal and provincial governments. The deal for the facility was upended when the U.S. passed its Inflation Reduction Act. That law includes production incentives for companies building electric vehicle batteries in the U.S. Stellantis now wants more money to seal the deal in Canada, a provision that was recently given to another foreign-owned battery factory setting up shop in Ontario. For more on this, we've reached Ian Lee. He's an associate professor with the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University, and we've reached him today in Ottawa. So, Ian, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We do appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Wondering what your reaction is to all of this. Why do these negotiations appear to be so challenging?
Well, this, I think, reveals the problems when government sets out to pick winners and losers, which is what they're doing when they say this company, but not a whole bunch of other companies, are going to become the recipient of government largesse that we call subsidies or more pejoratively, corporate welfare. Because other companies that are not getting the corporate welfare or subsidies or are not getting as much are going to say, wait a minute, you gave that other company over there called Volkswagen $13 billion and we're not getting anywhere near that. And so we want more. And you set up, not you, but I mean the governments, and it's both Ontario and the federal government who are guilty here, have set up this dialectic, this competition for government subsidies. And, you know, the old-fashioned way, if I can use that phrase, to make money was you went out and you competed to build a better mousetrap, to build a better car, to build a better cell phone. And then the market determined who was going to succeed and fail. And this is a very expensive proposition when we don't have a comparative advantage in automobile production. It's in a handful of countries, and we're not one of those top 5 countries.
Well, let's talk about that then, because, of course, sort of at play here as well is the United States and the Inflation Reduction Act. Like I was just saying there, it does provide these subsidies, incentives for companies to set up shop there. Can Canada compete with the U.S.?
I don't believe so. I have studied all my professional career as a professor. I've traveled endlessly throughout the United States, 2 sabbaticals in the States. The United States is the world superpower. It is enormous. Just very quickly, Hillary, in the whole world, the whole wide world, there's 193 countries at the UN, and the total GDP, and that's this year, is $100 trillion. One country called the USA is responsible for 25 trillion. In other words, one country out of 193 are 25% of the world. Canada is a small player, an important player, yes, but with the idea that we can go head to head, toe to toe, and match the U.S. is just, it's just preposterous. The numbers do not support that claim.
What about in terms of return on your investment here then? Of course, we know that we're talking about hundreds of jobs here in the Windsor area in particular. As you're saying, this is billions of dollars that we're talking about, not millions, but billions of dollars. So what kind of a return do we get in terms of jobs when government does these types of investments? Do you think it's worth it here?
You know, if you had asked me that question in 2008 or 9, I think I would have grudgingly said, well, you know, we're in this deep recession. It's 2008-9. People are losing their jobs left, right, and center. We got to do something. And so we did. We bailed out, as we know, GM and Chrysler that became Stellantis. But we're not in that period. We're in 2023 where we have huge labor shortages. We are at the lowest unemployment level since the 1960s. The idea that we are desperate to create new jobs is nonsense. In fact, Hillary, what's so bad about this is because there's such a critical shortage of jobs, especially in Ontario, what's going to happen is these companies are going to be, they're not going to admit this publicly, but they're going to be poaching and robbing and soliciting employees, skilled employees from other companies nearby because they need the workers to work there. They need skilled workers. So they're going to go and grab workers from Magna or from GM or from Ford. So they're going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's not creating net new jobs. All you're doing is on a musical chairs of circulating the jobs in that economy. So it's not going to produce net increase in job creation.
What do you think is going to happen here ultimately, Ian? Do you think that the government will come to both the provincial and the federal will come to some sort of agreement here with Stellantis? Do you think that this will push forward?
Unfortunately, I do believe it will, because of the politics, the optics. There's both are very deeply committed. They understand that Windsor is, it's down in its luck. Windsor's gone through some tough times, and it's so seductive for a politician, for a leader to stand up before the microphones at those announcements, those deliverables as they're called, and say, I'm here to save you. I'm going to sign billions of dollars to make sure that you are saved. And so it's so seductive. I think that both governments, the government of Ontario, Conservative government, and the Liberal government in Ottawa, are going to come through with the money, even though it's, we could be spending it much more productively, where Canada does have a comparative advantage in critical minerals. And there's a desperate shortage of critical minerals, and that's what we should be doing. But unfortunately, I think they're going to put it into this plant and match or meet the demands of Stellantis and LG.
Ian, thank you for this. We really do appreciate your time and your perspective on all of this today. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks very much, Hillary.
Business professor Ian Lee for us there in Ottawa.